at American College for Commerce and Technology in Falls Church, Virginia, with the one and only Dr. Bill Skipper. Doc, it's good to have you here, man.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here. It's nice to see you. I'm still looking for that picture.
I know. I had it. I got the Fräulein to get it. She got it for me, and then I forgot it because that's just what I do. But we're going to get it up here. That gives me an incentive to come back. I'm going to turn your microphone up here, Dr. Skipper, just a little bit. So we're good to go. But tell me a little bit about the state of education in America. I want to start with Betsy DeVos, the new education secretary, the Department of Education. What do you think? What do you make of the whole thing, Bill?
I think I said off mic that I'm not a real big fan of U.S. Department of Education. Never have been. The Betsy DeVos position, I am interested in it. I'm interested in her push for charter schools. I think charter schools are good for America in the sense that they will take kids who are not traditionally well served by the public system. And if the charter schools are designed to attract those kids and teach them in certain ways, I'm a real fan of that. We need to educate every child and every child in America and every person on the planet. And America has not done well with a whole large segment of our population. I'm hoping that charter schools can demonstrate success with them. I'm hoping. I'm not confident, but I'm hoping. So in the sense of support of charter schools, I am an advocate. I helped write a charter school in Louisiana a couple of years ago when I was down there 20 years ago when I was in Louisiana. I helped write it, designed to educate kids who have been dropped out and kicked out of the public schools. We got it approved by the state. It started up, and it went nowhere because of bad management. But the idea I supported, and I supported across the country, if that's their purpose, to educate young people who historically have not been well educated by the public system. So I wish her well in that regard.
But generally, you were telling me offline that you feel that the Federal Department of Education, because they control the money, they basically can dictate what happens.
I don't know if they control the money. They have essential money. Whatever money the Department of Education puts out there, it's essential to the operations of the public school system. It's not a large percentage of the money that operates the public school system, but they can, because of the money they put in, they can essentially control what they want to control. If you take my dollar, you do what I say. You don't want to do what I say, don't take my dollar. However, I need your dollar to be a quality school to survive. Public education in America is strapped for money. The state system, the local systems, are all poor. They're broke. They're taxed to the limit. They have a hard time, and the schools must increase class size, decrease services to the kids, and it's unfortunate. So the dollar from the federal government is very, very important, much needed, and therefore we do what the government tells us to do. And a lot of times, unnecessarily, it gets in the way.
So what's the future? I mean, you look at public education right now, there's a lot of talk, especially in Virginia and West Virginia, North Carolina, some of the areas that we cover. There's a lot of talk, Dr. Skipper, about moving education at the public school level, the pre-college level, into offering technical classes and offering people and young people an opportunity to get training and a skill level so they compete for the jobs that are available today. I mean, is that vocational training? That seems to be a big factor. A lot of people saying that we need that to fill the jobs we have, and that we're educating people and they're not getting hired into these jobs because they haven't been trained for them at the high school level. What do you think of that?
Well, I think first of all, that's correct. The employers who are surveyed say they have a hard time finding qualified workforce, and that's out of college, and it comes back to what in the heck are schools supposed to do, and what are they doing? And I think we're at a crossroads of those questions. The questions really are, what's important to know, what's important to learn, and how do we teach it? And those are the fundamental questions for any educational professional. And they're largely not publicly addressed. What we talk about more about is control of education and things that the populace is interested in, but it ignores the fundamentals of what should kids know, how should they learn it, and what's important to know. And the problems get complicated because of technology today, or made more simple.
Right.
It's possible they're made more simple because today, just about every child that I've ever seen in the country recently anyway is carrying around in their hand a cell phone computer.
Right.
And if you ask the kid a question, they can quickly punch it into the computer and get an answer. I'm driving down the street in Pennsylvania the other day, and I'm looking at corn stalks 7 feet high, and I'm talking out loud about how many stalks of corn or how many ears of corn are on each one of those stalks. And my daughter punches in and says there's only one ear of corn for each one of those 7-foot-tall ears of stalk, and I was fascinated by that. Last night I asked her, hey, where's Wilson Ramos, who was our star catcher for the Nationals for so long? Where is he? I can't find him. She was just a second. Boom. Well, he's playing for Tampa Bay. Any question you can ask a kid, almost any question, can be answered from their handheld computer, whatever. So what are we teaching kids anymore? Are we teaching them facts? Are we teaching them how to find facts? Or are we teaching them what facts are important to find? What systems are important to have? What the whole nature of information and knowledge in the world is in radical transformation. And it's going to challenge all of us in the education business about what we do and how we do it.
Well, you know what? I haven't really thought about that. Everybody's got a mobile device now, and so it's a matter of just plugging in and finding the answer out. And, we've become so dependent on that there's a lot of things I remember, but even that, you try to augment it. Like, I was doing a column today, and I was referencing Nikki Haley, and I couldn't remember the shooter's name that's, I think, eventually going to get electrocuted. I couldn't think of his name. Of course, I just, punched it in. It was Dylan whatever. But so you don't need to remember everything because you got the handheld device and everything is there.
Yeah. Albert Einstein pretty much said the same thing. I don't need to know all that stuff if I can look it up.
Right.
What do I need to know if I can look it up? But it's going to challenge us as a society and as educators what to teach, what's important to know, and how the best way for kids to learn it. Now, one other thing I want to take off on, I've been wrestling with this for almost my whole life as an educator, and I've been on the wrong side of the question many times, the question about vocational education. When I was a kid, and probably when you were a kid, there was part of your school was vocational,
right,
and part of your school was so-called college prep or academic.
Right.
Well, in the end, all education is vocational. All education is vocational. All of the curriculum teaches or should teach the soft skills, what are called soft skills, that employers identify as priority number one for the skills their employees should have. The other skills are called technical skills, which are the things we do on the job with technology or whatever that, with writing or whatever that the job entails. But of the two, employers will always rank or have always ranked the soft skills as important or more important than the other. And all education is teaching or should be teaching those soft skills. And that's communications, punctuality, professional attendance, how to get along with people, how to ask questions, how to respond to questions, how to deal with different levels of clientele, your customer, your people you work with, the people you report to, and the people that you report to, who they report to.
Right.
How you understand and accommodate all of that, and how you understand what's new in the new, quote, that's not the right word, but the new force, anyway, in the last 50 years is quality. Quality in professionalism, quality in business, quality as an idea, quality as an understanding that everybody should be or has embraced that chooses to be successful. How do we teach those things? And where do we put our priorities in the family and in the classroom on all of those things?
Well, those are the things that certainly we're going to continue to talk about and try to flesh out. We've got a lot more to cover. So, Dr. Skipper, we turn all these college graduates out. They spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, $100,000 getting out of college. They get out. They have $70,000 in student debt. They can't pay it off, and they can't get a job. It's too expensive, and they're not teaching the right things. What the hell's going on? Kind of an open-ended question.
Well, the colleges too often are not focused on a clear purpose. They're focused on an historical purpose, and that's to have an education and put kids through and leave them with a diploma on so-called liberal arts education or education in a certain categorical area. My story is, the story that I tell is my nephew graduated from a major university out west, a major university out west. And when he was graduating, he said, I want to go to law school. I said, oh, wonderful. Go ahead, get your application in. He said, well, it requires letters of recommendation. And I said, well, good. Go to a couple of your teachers, your favorite teachers, and ask them to write you a letter. He says, I can't. I said, why? He says, they don't know me. They don't know me. And I tried to factor that out. All of his classes were in large auditorium-type rooms with a whole lot of kids, 50, 70, 100, 200 kids per class. And he went through college and with that kind of an education. I call it conveyor belt education. And therefore, the guy teaching the class did not know personally the students. And that, to me, is a sad state of affairs for higher education, and it's becoming somewhat like that in public education because of the tax system and the classroom size, that we teach large groups of kids and not individuals. And therefore, when they go out for employment, what can the kids do? What does he know? He has a degree. He had a good time in school, spent a lot of money. But what are his skills? What has been developed? What has been nurtured? And we have a lot of people in higher education. Obviously, the system cannot get zeroed down to each one of them to developing, but they should. That should be the target. That's what parents are paying for. That's what kids are hoping for. In the end, they're hoping for. Too many of us are looking for the soft way through life. None of us want to do hard things. Sometimes education, learning, is a hard thing, but that's what makes us good. Those who knuckle down and grind it out and develop themselves are the ones who, in the end, become the leaders and the entrepreneurs and the folks who we look up to in society. It's a natural thing to try to do as least you can to get by. That's natural. We all want that. But the ones who force us to work and grow and drive are the ones we are thankful for the rest of our lives when we get past them. And I'm just sad that the situation is too much. We have too much emphasis in schools on the support systems and not enough emphasis on where the focus ought to be, is that one-on-one relationship in the classroom.
All right. Fascinating expose, Dr. Bill Skipper. His vision in starting this school was to get a college that was focused on getting people the highest paying jobs they could when they got out. Now, you think that would be a pretty easy concept, right? Let's get a college and let's focus on jobs and let's focus on the industries that are hiring so they can get the best jobs. Easier said than done. Bill's been able to do that. And I always have to tell this story, Bill. I have to retell it because it's fascinating, because Dr. Skipper gave me the unique opportunity to be the commencement speaker of his graduates in 2015, right?
Yeah.
2 years ago. And beautiful graduation ceremony at the Marriott, I think. And how many graduates you have that day? A couple of hundred?
Probably 150.
About 150. So I got to make the commencement speech and put the little hat on and hand him the diploma and had a little tassel in the robe. That was fun. I enjoyed it. But what was amazing to me is the reception after, right? So I'm going to the reception. There's, things to eat and fun things, and everybody's there. Their families are there. You know what you do at a reception after graduation. Every single person I talked to either had a job that they just started or was getting a job like the next week or 2 weeks if they took a week off. Person after person after person, it was like 100% employment. I never saw anything alike it. And these were good jobs in technical areas, computers and spatial business information. I mean, with big companies at like 60,000, 70,000. And I couldn't believe it. And it was really a wake-up call for me, Bill. And I know you've been trying to get post-secondary education to move in this direction. And the other thing you've done is you've put it together in a way that people can afford without coming out of school with, $100,000 in debt, right?
That's what we hope, yes.
How have you made this happen?
Well, we make it happen by having a low tuition. The real question is, how do we survive financially with a low tuition? And we do that by not having what most higher education schools do have. That's a lot of higher ed administrative positions, lawns that have to be mowed, buildings that have to be maintained, services that make the school look good but don't add to the educational value of the student. We focus our dollar on the educational experience of each student. We want them to have a college experience. We want them to have a quality experience in the classroom, and we don't want them to be saddled with debt when they leave. And that being saddled with debt is one of America's major problems right now. It doesn't get a lot of press, but it's a fact of life that too many kids owe a whole lot of money when they come out of school, and that's what forces a lot of them to have to live in their mom's basement, as you were saying earlier.
A lot of them do, and they come out with this major debt, and then they can't find a job.
I read a statistic a couple of weeks ago that said the average college graduate owes $33,000 of student debt, the average. And that is unconscionable to me. As a parent, as a student, whatever, I just cannot fathom being saddled with that kind of a hangover.
Coming out of college.
And I know how long it takes to pay off a bill.
Right.
It's just unconscionable, and the schools are doing it. And I don't want to say getting away with it, but they're doing it, allowing kids to borrow all that money to go to their school so they can jack up their prices to pay for their own upper level support systems. We have administrator upon administrator upon administrator at most schools that really I question and challenge.
This from Corey in Williamsburg. He says, I graduated from William and Mary in Williamsburg, and I'm told this because the state does not fund as much to our school. But he says, that's fine. But he says, the campus now, when I go to a football game, looks like a country club by comparison to when I went in the 1970s. And it's got 50% more students than when I was there, yet it's one of the most expensive schools, public schools in the nation. Dr. Skipper, what has driven the cost of colleges up so high?
Well, the colleges have to pay for their their existence. They've hired enormous numbers of administrators and support people above the classroom, and pay for things that are not functional in the classroom. They're not paying for the classroom. They're paying for all the support stuff around the classroom and above it, and asking the state and the student to pay for it. And what is sacrificed, if anything has to be sacrificed, is the class size. Class size is just expands, and the student is paying for it without getting compensation from their experience. I'm over-exaggerating it, but not long ago I'm down in Louisiana touring the LSU campus, and there are signs all over that they're reducing the faculty and enlarging class size because of their financial situation. They have to cut the teachers. When they cut the teachers, they have to increase class size, so that's when the kids go back into the auditoriums. They maintain all of the other stuff. They maintain all the athletics. They maintain all of the maintenance. They maintain the lawn service. They maintain the administrative services and the faculty cafeteria, the faculty restaurant or whatever, and the student restaurant and the athletic facilities for the kids, the recreational facility. They maintain those things, but they cut the purpose of the school, which is the classroom. That goes on everywhere. And we all know it. We all see it. And it's like, how do we stop it? We can't, because it's there.
That is an amazing analogy. I mean, you go to Louisiana State. I'm sure you were there with your daughter. She was looking at it. They have a budget crunch, and so they keep everything else and cut the one thing that they're there to do, which is educate the students.
Yeah. When you think of, college, the first thing you think of is, what's its reputation? What is its reputation? It's its football team or its basketball team. Sometimes, occasionally, it's because they are, quote, Ivy League. They have reputations that are well beyond what's going on individually with each teacher and each kid in the classroom. And they thrive on that. They must have that to recruit the kids, keep their, obviously, we all want a good reputation.
Right.
But it's very hard to develop a reputation for quality in the classroom, that comes from having quality teachers doing, quality activities.
So when I talk to so many of your graduates who are coming out without any debt or very minimal debt and getting jobs, I mean, if you were to juxtapose that to any public college in Virginia, it's not even close. So, I mean, do you help them with job placement? I mean, how do all your graduates get jobs before they're even out?
That's a tribute to the individual kids. They find the jobs. There are networks of information that kids access to know about jobs. In Fairfax County in Northern Virginia, we are probably the number 2 technology center of America after Silicon Valley.
In Fairfax.
In this area, in Fairfax and Northern Virginia.
Right.
And most of our kids, the ones you're talking to, most of those kids are computer science majors. Mm-hmm. They're not psychology majors or history majors. Most of them are computer science majors. We do have about 20% of our kids are business majors. But the ones you're talking about that obviously have quick jobs were doing it because they're in the IT computer science field.
And that's the field where obviously the jobs are. And then within that field, you look for the specialization that has the highest propensity for job openings.
Yeah. And when I talk to people, they're either a parent or an employer. And I ask the employers, what do you look for in your employee candidates? And they all tell me the same thing. They say, first, ability to work in a group, ability to take criticism, ability to want to be better, ability to go to work and not have to be told what to do. Those are all, none of those are technical skills.
Right.
Now, and my argument is in public education, ironically, we are teaching exactly the opposite of what employers want. We teach kids, do your own work, don't collaborate with somebody else. Do your work, I will grade it, give it back to you, we move on. We reinforce bad behavior. I don't know any time in my life as an employer, as a student, as a colleague or whatever, that anybody did anything absolutely right the first time they did it. Okay? I don't know of ever in my experience that we did anything exactly right the first time we did it. And yet schools will ask a kid to do an assignment. The kid turns it in, the teacher grades it, gives it back, and then they move on. What I believe, if we have a kid do an assignment, we should teach them to do it right. And it may take 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. It may take whatever. But I doubt that they're going to do it right absolutely the first time. Very rarely. After a long time, kids will develop the habits of editing their own work or having somebody else critique their own work to get it better and better and better. And that's the attitude that employers want. And yet in schools, we don't reinforce that. And we think it's contrary to what schools should do. We think the teacher should throw it out there, and then we'll measure how much of what I threw out there the student caught, and then we'll evaluate it. And a whole lot of them catch a lot of it the first time. They're the smart kids. The other kids get B's and C's, and we move on. And I think that's contrary. It is contrary to what I believe.
Well, not only that, Dr. Skipper, and just so everybody knows, we're with Dr. Bill Skipper. He's the founder and the chief educator at the American College of Commerce and Technology. He's been a lifelong educator. And Dr. Skipper, but also the thing you mentioned is you're taught at school, especially when you do a test, there could be no collaboration. Yet when you get to your first job, everything is about teamwork and collaboration.
Everything.
So it's exactly. I mean, and if you're not a team player, you're not looked on favorably.
Yeah, and not only that, you're putting your company at a disadvantage.
Right.
You become inefficient.
Right.
And inefficiency drives up costs, and inefficiency drives down reputation. So anyway, those are fundamental, simple things that we believe here that we try to inculcate into each classroom. And the attitude is if the kid doesn't do it right, have them do it again.
Right.
And possibly again and again. And that's a hard explanation to teachers who've been in the system all their lives and have worked and trained and been developed under an alternative method. It's a very simple explanation to parents, and it's a very simple explanation to employers. The hardest part is to get that attitude and system inculcated or implemented within the educational system.
That is the toughest thing to do, no question about it. I know that you've been a pioneer in this, Dr. Skipper, for some time. What is the future in America of colleges like yours?
When you say like mine, how do you mean?
Well,
are you talking about like a for-profit school?
I mean, not necessarily for profit. I mean, look, all schools have to make some money or they got to get more money for the government. But as far as your vision for lower cost education, getting jobs filled, being outside of the public education sector, you're not part of the University of Virginia system. Yeah. You're not getting federal dollars. What is the future for this?
I don't think it's going to take over. I think most people in a for-profit sector are after profits. Mm-hmm. And you think in terms of costs and revenue and how to increase the revenue and decrease the costs. And I think the way we're doing it here, we made our mark because we reduced our revenue. When we reduced our revenue, ironically, we increased our margins because more kids came. They came first for our tuition, which was highly competitive and much lower than everybody else. And then they enjoyed the treatment they received at the front desk and at the admissions process. And they really enjoyed the classroom experience. And out of that, they brought their friends. We have no marketing except for our student referring other students.
And me.
And you. Thank you.
John Fredericks for Radio Network, your number one marketing tool in America. But you're right. I mean, you have no marketing cost. And so you cut tuition to lower revenue, which created the best experience, which also created the classroom experience of smaller size. I met all your professors. They love what they do. And then you get them jobs, and then the word gets out.
Yeah. It's I think it can work on a small scale like for us. It gets tougher as you grow larger and get replicated in other places. It's just tough. I just think in the end, the pessimistic part of me is in the end, the dollar wins. Mm-hmm. And it should. But I don't think what we're doing here has it can be branded and be sent everywhere.
So you can't.
It takes an unusual group of people.
Right.
Takes some crazy people like me and others who work with us to make it work.
So it's not necessarily a McDonald's franchisable idea.
I don't think so, because the driver has to be the belief in what we're doing, the belief, and the attitude of the people who are operating the place. It's not just something you can put in a one-size-fits-all box mm-hmm. and take it out. That's mm-hmm. what I think. I think it's even here. It's very, very hard mm-hmm. to teach and preach and manage mm-hmm. the philosophy that I'm expressing here. It's an easy philosophy, but it's not easy to communicate.
And then a lot of the for-profit schools around the country have come under fire for abuse of the student loan system and other federal dollars, where their first objective is money back to their investors and stakeholders and not necessarily to the experience for the student.
Yeah. It's, a good idea misused. Federal student loan money is a good idea that gets misused too much. And, the counter to the bad story is the good story. The good story doesn't get told. There are a whole lot of folks in this world, in this country, who went to college on student loan money, graduated, made it, have a life, and they move from the lower class to the middle class, or the middle class to an upper middle class. But those stories don't get told. What we do get told are the schools and the kids who misused the federal student loan money and put us $1 trillion in student loan default debt. That story gets told and gets beat up on. But the other side doesn't. But the one good fact about, just one of them, about the for-profit schools, we educate kids who normally wouldn't be in the higher education system without us. They're not going to George Mason University, University of Virginia, Virginia Tech. They're going to for-profit schools because they have a job, they're working, or they're at home. They have a different lifestyle, and the for-profits fit their lifestyle, and they have an opportunity to go to school and better their lives. And the statistics show that the number of people who've moved from the lower class to middle class, the majority of those that came from having gone to a for-profit college, because those lower class kids would not be going to those other public schools
because they can't afford it.
For whatever, it doesn't fit their life.
Right.
They have to live at home, or they're working. They have children. Whatever. The public school system is designed for the kid that's 18 to 22, 23 years old. It's designed for them. The kid in for-profit is not that kid. Mm-hmm. It's a younger or older middle-class adult mm-hmm. Who has a whole different lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So it fits and it serves the population of this country, and it should not be undervalued and overlooked.
All right. That is a fascinating discussion, as always, we have with Dr. Bill Skipper. And it's like every time you get down on the education system, I just have to come here, spend the day, get an hour with Dr. Skipper on the radio, and you get re-inspired. Your vision is very compelling. Dr. Skipper, a pioneer in post-secondary education. He single-handedly at the American College of Commerce and Technology has single-handedly changed the model as we know it for college education. But he's saying it's the passion and the desire of himself, his staff, and those that are in his faculty, and it's very difficult to get this replicated. But he's going to go down in history as somebody that had the idea to basically change things. Of course, that's also affrontive to the educational bureaucracy establishment in Washington, D.C., so he's not a friend of theirs.